Now, 2 weeks ago, this trophy hunter by the name Asher Watkins was killed by the same buffalo he was going to hunt. And instead of the world sending condolences messages, many celebrated his death across the world, terming it justice at last. The motherland is revenging. I mean, those are strong terms right there. And we will be getting to some of those comments. But let me just walk you through this man, because Asher Watkins wasn't just any hunter. This 52-year-old Texas millionaire was a life member of the Dallas Safari Club. I think he owned part of it or something of the sort, but he turned killing into a lifestyle. I mean, this man spent tens of thousands of dollars traveling across the world just to fill his walls with death images, you know, from lions and antelopes in Africa, mountain lions in the US, to thousands of doves gunned down in Argentina over a single trip. When you go to his pages and his images, you can see him flaunting each kill online as a badge of honor. And even on his final safari in Limpopo, South Africa, where he paid nearly $10,000 to stalk the Cape buffalo known as the Black Death, his obsession with trophies obviously ended in brutal irony as the beast charged and killed him before he could pull the trigger. I mean, they are saying that the buffalo was unprovoked, but then you would wonder what would happen if the buffalo sees you with a gun. Definitely there's some provocation going on. But before that, let's just take a look at what happened when the news broke. The world did not mourn. Instead, it roared. Social media was filled with fire. I mean, guys, you had comments such as "Karma caught up." Some people would say the hunter became the hunted. And also some people would say justice at last. The motherland has taken its revenge. And I'm going to read you a couple of those comments because, as I said, the world was not having it. People were celebrating. This person by the name Lex Satol said, "I'm on Team Buffalo. These cowards tried to call hunting a sport, but a sport is when both sides know that they are in the game and they have equal offense-defense equipment. These hunters are nothing more than trying to justify their psychopathic urges. After all, isn't a serial killer a psychopath?" And another person would say, "This makes me so happy that the hunter learned his lesson in a big way. Hunters are greedy cowards, and the buffalo was in his own territory and would naturally defend himself and his territory. As a South African who has spent long periods of time in the bush and wilds, I ask you, please never come to Africa because of your bloodlust to kill defenseless wild animals." And another person here would say, "I will never understand the psychopathy of the human who finds killing endangered species entertaining. Something profoundly broken inside those noggins." Okay, so you can see the comments, right? So obviously, to satisfaction of so many people, Asher Watkins was no victim. He was a symbol of arrogance, cruelty, and the twisted glory of killing for fun. And in his death, as I said, people saw something more than tragedy. They saw balance being restored. The same animals he turned into lifeless trophies were finally given a voice, and that voice screamed through the horns of a buffalo. But what happened next to the buffalo? Because I know some people know, you know, it exposes the system for what it really is. The Cape buffalo was killed. Watkins wasn't spared either. Once it gored him, the professional hunter escorting him shot it dead. And that's the rule. Any animal that kills or injures a hunter is automatically killed. And even if it was only defending itself, this case, a lot of people agree that the buffalo was definitely defending itself. They will kill it and they will call it finishing the hunt. But in reality, this is punishment. That buffalo was protecting itself and protecting its herd, doing what nature programmed it to do. And for that, it was executed. I mean, Africans watching this saw more than just an accident. They saw revenge. In African spirituality, the buffalo stood not alone, but as a vessel of the ancestors, a messenger striking down an invader in the name of generations that have watched their lands, their animals, and their dignity stolen. And we'll get deeper into that because, guys, there's just something about about Africans' land and their animals, right? And as I said, to many people, this was their dignity stolen. And to them, what King's death was symbolic. It wasn't a random act of nature. It was history finally catching up, And the numbers are brutal. Let me just give you a few statistics here. Every single year across Africa, these statistics are going to worry you. More than 600 lions, 800 leopards, 500 elephants, 50 rhinos, and over 1,000 Cape buffaloes are legally hunted and killed. These big fives are turned into souvenirs for foreign hunters, and that's thousands of Africa's most iconic animals. Look at all those elephants, the lions, the rhinos just being killed. They are being wiped out, not by poachers in the shadows, but by men in khaki shorts, holding permits, smiling for photos over the bodies, just saying, we have arrived, And we are going to talk about why trophy hunting is a threat to Africa. We must confront the lie that sustains it, conservation. They tell us trophy hunting protects wildlife and supports community, but the truth is it protects the wallets of safari companies, governments, and foreign elites, never the African villager. That's why I asked for this book, because a lot is packed in this conservation lie. We are going to get into this book. Majority of you who watch this show are familiar with this book, and we definitely have to talk about this whole conservation lie, because safari companies and Western lobbies such as Dallas Safari Club, where Watkins was a member, or the Safari Club International, they will argue trophy hunting funds conservation. Let's just stop there. Trophy hunting funds conservation, but they will not give you the statistics, and I will give you the statistics right now. Less than 3% of hunting revenues ever reach local communities, because most of it is absorbed by foreign outfitters, corrupt elites, and government ministries. And even a report by the International Council for Game and Wildlife Conservation admitted that only $11 million of the $200 million revenue per year from the hunting industry actually goes to communities across all Africa. That's pennies compared to what photo tourism generates in Kenya or Tanzania, right? And obviously you will see that photo tourism is more sustainable, because look at Kenya, which banned trophy hunting in 1977. It earns billions annually, far more sustainable than a handful of rich men shooting lions or buffalo. So why are we encouraging sports hunting? And here's also the harder truth. Conservation itself has become a weapon, and that's why this book is right there, because we have talked about it. Hunting blocks are carved out of ancestral lands. Look at any hunting block that is around you. Tell me whose land was that? And Africans will be told, you cannot graze your cattle, you cannot hunt for food, you cannot enter the land that your ancestors walked. Why? Because the land must be kept pristine, it has to have certain aura for wealthy foreigners to fly in and kill an animal for sport, So the conservation defense is not only false, but it's also a shield for new colonial extraction. Conservation under trophy hunting means locking Africans out of their own land while outsiders cash in. And if you doubt me, look at all the conservation blocks around you and tell me once again who owned that place first, and how were they, how are the local people exited from that particular place. Now, people like Mordecai and Mbaria, who are the authors of the book that I'm holding here, The Big Conservation Lie, and this is a book that I've advocated for everyone to get a copy of. The cover photo itself, it's striking. You have someone here, obviously a white foreigner, enjoying his life, while you have the natives on the other hand, carrying babies and fetching firewoods, and then these people are enjoying such views, and there's also a gun here. They have definitely exposed this scam with brutal clarity, and they showed us how foreign NGOs, Western governments, and white-led safari companies created a conservation industry in Kenya that excluded Africans from decision-making. Look at the boards of these conservation places or companies. Show me any Africa that is involved in decision making. In Laikipia, for example, white ranchers, they hold vast estates under the cover of wildlife conservation. We've had those conversations here before. I mean, look at Laikipia, guys. They will tell you this is a tourist attraction place, but when you look at the communities just few kilometers away from this conservation, you wonder who is definitely benefiting here. Those conservations, they surround pastoralists. Look at people like the Samburu, the Turkana, the Maasai. They are branded trespassers or poachers if they graze their cattle on land their ancestors used for centuries. But then again, guys, we have to have conservancies in this country or in this continent. Mordecai calls it bluntly. Conservation has become a continuation of colonialism by other means. The wildlife being conserved is really a justification to keep land in white hands and Africans outside the fence. Tell me why one elephant, one rhino, one lion will be kept in 200,000 acres of land. Isn't that supposed to keep the natives out of their own land? Well, also tell me why a white hunter with a license is celebrated as a conservationist. Like, does it even make sense? But a hungry African sparing an antelope for food will be branded a criminal or a poacher. By the way, guys, when it's done by wealthy people who have licenses, then it's sports hunting. But when it's done by black people, obviously this person is a poacher, or the natives, when they do it, they become poachers, right? I'm telling you guys, this is not about the animal. It's not about who has the right to kill and who does not. That right is racialized, politicized, and monetized. Prove me wrong. Guys, just prove me wrong. And obviously, there is also the power game. This is not an African sport. Trophy hunting is not African. This is just a colonial import. Tuliletewa kitu huku, they called it sports hunting, and they want to convince us that this is an African game. No, this is not an African game. Europeans and Americans invented this sport during colonization. They built safaris to shoot elephants, lions, and rhinos as symbols of domination. When you see an image of a white man with his boot on a dead lion's head, that's not about food or survival. It's about an empire. It's about saying, we own this land. We own its animals. We even own the right to decide when they die. There you go. They own everything and they decide what happens next. Africans, we hunted for food. And there was obviously balance with nature for centuries. We respected the spirits of the animals, but colonial trophy hunting has destroyed that balance. It was designed to erase African traditions and replace them with blood-soaked entertainment for European elites. Every lion shot, every elephant gunned down was a performance of power. The rifle became the flag, the dead animal became the trophy of conquest, and the photo, the smiling hunter, the lifeless beast, the rifle pointing to the sky, it became propaganda to remind the world who controlled Africa. You are in African soil, shooting African animals and reminding us we own this place. And you guys will look as we continue dominating these lands, because that's, you guys can't tell us anything. Today, people like the late Asher Watkins continue this tradition. They may not call it empire anymore, but it is the same script, paying tens of thousands of dollars. They reenact colonial conquest on African soil. A modern safari is no different from the old one, because you have a rich foreigner proving his dominance by taking the life of Africa's most powerful animals. You guys have seen the figures. You are leaving locals to sweep the dust and carry the carcass. And obviously, you are still reminding us we are dominating and we rule this land and we own the people and we decide when the animals live and when the animals die. And so, trophy hunting is not just killing animals. It is the continuation of a colonial ritual, a ritual designed to remind Africa of its subjugation, where outsiders will still decide what lives, what dies, and still on African land. But who really benefits? Let's take a look at who really benefits. And I have posed a challenge to every African watching this. Take a look at these conservancies and the parks around you and dig deeper and see who benefit. These places are operated by foreign safari operators. They love using the word safari. The majority of these hunting outfitters, even in South Africa, they are white owned, often with links to European or South African elites. They pocket the bulk of the revenue. You have a conservancy in African soil, but the profits, and they declare their taxes somewhere. This does not help the people. And then obviously they will collaborate with government or corrupt elites here in Africa. The hunting fees that they say, you know, these people pay tens of thousands of dollars as hunting fees are not funneled into the communities. They are funneled into ministries where corruptions swallow them. If really conservation helped Africans, tell me why all the areas around conservations and these parks are so underdeveloped. The people who live with elephants, lions, and buffaloes, who go around destroying their crops, they don't benefit, they get crumbs. But Western hunters will get the prestige, the photographs, and trophies mounted in their mansions. The irony, right? Meanwhile, the African villager who lost a goat to a lion or maize to an elephant sees nothing but death and hunger, or they are shot because you are poachers. This is a colonial system in disguise, guys. Outsiders will extract wealth, local elites collaborate for their cut, and ordinary Africans are dispossessed. It obviously mirrors the old slave trade and mineral plunder. The resources are different, but the hierarchy is the same. Let's take a look at Tanzania because we're about to go deeper. Nearly 40% of its land is under conservation. 40% of Tanzania's land is under conservation. Much of its trophy hunting blocks leased to foreign outfitters, right? So not even to local people, because Africans don't understand the safari empire. You don't understand, guys, you don't understand. The Maasai of Loliondo, they have been violently evicted multiple times to expand hunting concessions. For some of these companies that we know are owned by royal families in the Middle East, right? I don't want to mention names, do your research. See who benefits after natives are chased from their ancestral lands. If you don't want to use Tanzania as your case study, go to Namibia. You know, people talk of Namibia as, you know, the Western media portrays it as a model for community-based conservation. But in reality, white-owned farms dominate trophy hunting there, while indigenous San people have been pushed to the margins, allowed only token jobs as trackers or skinners, you know. Let's go deeper. Let's go to Botswana. This is definitely an African issue. Botswana banned trophy hunting in 2014 under President Ian Khama, after evidence showed it was depleting wildlife and generating little benefit for locals. But, you know, Africa, we have the tendency of banning something and then pressure here, pressure there. Under political pressure from elites and foreign lobbies, the ban was lifted in 2019, despite community protests. Then when you go to South Africa, the horror itself definitely peaks. Lions are bred in captivity, raised by hand, and then released in small enclosures where rich foreigners will pay to shoot them at close range. Over 8,000 lions live in such farms, bred not for the wild but for the bullets. I mean, you see the way people bred chickens for slaughter? There are farms who are breeding lions for the bullets. And you say this is not blood farming? What is this? This is definitely blood farming. And the money these people pay, we talked of Watkins paying a cool 10,000 USD to hunt the buffalo. But lion hunts themselves will cost you 25,000 to 50,000 USD. Elephant, to hunt an elephant, you need 40,000 USD to 70,000 USD. And rhino themselves, rhino, you need almost 100,000 USDs. And the buffaloes, 15,000 to 25,000 USD. So you are telling me these are African hobbies. Which ordinary African person has 100,000 USD stacked somewhere because they want to go and kill a buffalo or a rhino? These are millionaires' blood rituals. These are not African hobbies. No, these are not African hobbies. We know whose hobbies these are, but they are done in African land. 70 to 80% of that fee will go directly to the outfitters. And then they will give you the 15% to government permits and taxes. And then obviously, because we know the corruption in African governments, it's gone. And that's where you will have 3% reaching actual villages. So when someone says it helps conservation, ask this question. Ask this question. Which conservation? You mean the Swiss bank accounts or the offshore accounts of safari owners? Or the children in Limpopo and Masai Mara who still live in poverty? Whose conservation? Because if we are preserving our land, thousands of acres for conservation, then who is it really helping? And don't forget, this money is paid not just for the hunt, but for power, for the right to dominate. And I want us to pay attention to this dominance. Because people are dominating, they are erasing, and they are relighting the balance of nature. When someone pays a cool $100,000 to kill a rhino, what he's really buying is the authority to say, I decide who lives and I decide who dies. And today, if we are killing animals, tomorrow we will kill you. You know? And obviously, this, if you don't see a connection or a direct threat to Africa, wildlife depletion, look at how much we lose. We lose an estimated 35,000 elephants a year. Not only to poachers, but to legal trophy hunters. Lions and leopards are being pushed towards extinction. These are animals we lived with. Our ancestors lived with these animals. We coexisted with these animals. There is obviously the genetic damage. These hunters make sure that they target the strongest males. I mean, these people are not here hunting rabbits or pigs or some cows or whatever. They are targeting the strongest males. Lions with big manes. You have your elephants there with long tusks. And over decades, this removes prime genes, leaving weaker herds, right? So what are we going to do with some rabbits here, some pigs there? No. And if you cannot see it from that perspective, then let's admit this is cultural insult. You know, Africans are told, your wildlife is worth more dead than alive. And that's the same colonial script used to justify slavery and land theft. Africans were told they can't manage their own resources. How can we manage a rhino and an elephant? You guys, do you even know how to manage leopards? Do you? No. And this now goes on to create dependency. Trophy hunting locks African countries into dependency on Western money and markets. If the US or Europe bans trophy imports, the entire economies collapse. So this is proof that it's not built for Africans in the first place. It tells Africans, actually, your animals are ours, your land is ours, your future is ours. So tell me, how is this definitely benefiting us as Africans? I know it's a sad scenario for the Watkins family to lose their loved ones, but we have to admit, this man's death is not just one man's story. It's a mirror of a system where rich outsiders fly in, kill, fly out, while Africans watch their heritage get drained. That's the simple fact. A system where conservation is code for extraction. Animals are turned into dollar signs and villagers are left into beggars. They are turned into beggars. A system where Africa is still treated as a colonial playground. Please don't come and do those things in Africa. You know, dressed up in language of ecotourism and heritage preservation. Why is it that Africans don't talk this talk of conservation? And so, when this now Cape Buffalo struck Watkins down, you can see why many Africans did not see tragedy. They saw symbolism. They saw Africa, which has been silent for centuries, finally speak in the language of survival. Right? And I genuinely have to conclude by saying sport hunting is not about Africa, not about conservation, and certainly not about communities. And though his death has definitely opened a conversation, we also have to admit that this whole sport hunting is about money, ego, and the continuation of a colonial relationship where Africa is the stage of outsiders, where Africa is the stage and outsiders are the stars. Come do whatever you gotta do in Africa. And until we kill the system, the buffalo's horn will always be sharper than our sovereignty. Like the buffalo knew this was wrong. Why can't we, as Africans? Like, why can't we? An animal knows what is wrong in the society and decides, you know, you guys will say I was unprovoked, but you are in my territory holding a gun, ready to hunt me down because you paid $10,000. I mean, when people say this buffalo is the hero of the story, you can't deny that. But it did not have to take someone's death for people to start having conversations around sports hunting. It's evil. I don't care how much joy it creates or the thrill it gives people, it's evil. Because when you look at the communities that get displaced so that this can happen in a very posh manner, there's no way we as Africans can continue supporting that. But as always, really interested in your views on the same. Let me know what you think about this. And also, if you can, and I always say this is not an ad, try and get this book for yourself and try pass it to the generations that will come after you. Because this book, not only does it debunk the myths around conservation, but it teaches us a lot of things that we were definitely never meant to learn. So get a copy. And if you watched this all the way and you've not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It goes a long way into making sure such conversations get to a larger group of people. And let me know in the comment section what your take home has been and whether you learned something from today's show. But I really want to take this moment to thank our partners, that is TapTap. So in case you're watching this from diaspora and you want to send money back home to your loved ones, consider using TapTap. They are very fast. They have great rates. And if you use my promo code Lynn that is appearing on your screen right now, then you'll be able to get a bonus on the figures appearing on your screen, but only if you're transacting with them for the very first time. But if you still want to invest in a property here in Kenya, here is a reminder that Hekalu Properties have a great property for you around Konza City. You guys have definitely shown interest in our second launch. The first one was sold out. The second launch, I think we are somewhere halfway. So make sure that you check them out. The prices are on your screen. Call them. The properties are amazing. They made sure you guys have water. There's electricity close to Mombasa Road and definitely located around the Konza Technopolis buffer zone. So it's a great property to invest in only if you can. And also feel free to give me feedback on any of our partners. Info@lnn.digital. That's where you can be able to find me. In the meantime, share your thoughts on sports hunting in Africa, and also where do we now go from here as Africans, because we cannot keep having conversations on conservation. First, that word alone is a big lie in this continent. So I would love to know your views on where do we go from here, and what has been your take home from today's episode. My name is Lynn Ngugi. See you hopefully tomorrow. Missed you guys. I know we've not seen each other. It's been a minute. I definitely missed you, but I know we have a lot of shows lined up for you, and also show suggestions are allowed also on the comment section. Okay, see you guys. Bye.